Hey everyone. Well, welcome to the UFO Hub live stream. Today's guest is going to be Red Pill Junkie, and I'm very excited to talk to him today. I reached out to him earlier this week. No, last week. Nope, this week. And basically just ask him if you could talk to me about what's been going on, because he's a researcher himself about UFOs and everything else. And I wanted to kind of get his take on what's going on in Peru and possibly Brazil. We haven't exactly discussed which way or which route we'll go down, or what he can tell me, basically what he can tell me most about, but we'll take it from wherever we start out today. The other part is he will be voice only today, no video, but the information is information anyway. So I'm just excited that this basically worked out. As always, in the description below, I have a link to the Daily Grail, where RPJ is, I want to say, a contributor or basically a blogger. I'll let him explain this more later on. And then, of course, he has his personal website, I believe, and the link to that. And so I'll let him explain to us what different websites he has. And as always, I always would like to encourage everyone to just check it out and support our guests in that way. So, all right, I think I have everything, and let me bring him in, and we'll get started. Let me unmute him here. Hey, RPJ, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Adnan. Loud and clear.
Awesome.
Thank you for having me.
Well, no, thank you for for being able to make this today. I really appreciate it. I know it was totally in short notice, but I don't know. I can't thank you enough. So we basically just I showed some videos. I had another lady. She was very helpful to help translate about what was going on in these different videos, whatever they were reporting on. But that was the limit and the extent to what I understood was happening. So I was wondering if you could give us more information, or whatever you hear from your end, because if I'm not mistaken, you are live from Mexico right now, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay. And so I'm just wondering what the rumors are and rumorings around there right now.
Around Mexico?
Yeah, just what you are hearing. I know what we see and hear from what's happening there from our end, but I don't know if it's the same or different on yours.
Not sure how to tell you. Like right now, I think that most of Mexican ufology is more fixated, or was more fixated, with what was happening in the United States with regards to the testimony of these witnesses who spoke before Congress a few weeks ago. You know, David Grush, Ryan Graves, David Fravor. And I think that people were paying attention to that. Even people who were not really that interested in UFOs prior to all these developments. You know how it is. We've been hearing this shtick since 2017. The same lame joke like, oh, wow, the U.S. government just confirmed UFOs are real, but nobody cares. And it's like, well, nobody cares because there's no evidence. They just testimony of people who spoke to a person who spoke to another person who might have seen something interesting, and that's just about it. And I think that was the thing that was gotten people attention here in Mexico for obvious reasons. Like, United States is our closest neighbor, is our biggest business partner. There are other things into consideration with our link to the United States, like illegal drug trafficking, illegal immigration, and all that. And in a way, I feel that maybe that kind of stuff, the particulars of Latin America was the thing that really caught my eye when this news about strange happenings in Peru and Brazil. Although, to be honest, I'm not really that cognizant of what is happening in Brazil. I guess I got more attention to what's happening in Peru. But these things that are now starting to brew into the UFO field, it kind of felt like a breath of fresh air, if you know what I mean, because up until now, we were just worrying about this disclosure, the people who are going to tell us UFOs are real, aliens are here, and are going to serve all of this in a silver platter without anyone having to do anything, and case closed. Well, now here comes this actual news that seems to be UFO related, and regardless of what's going on in Peru, and it seems it's pretty terrible, but it kind of felt good, in a way, to now once again be focusing on UFOs instead of just people. You know what I mean?
Right. And so what was, if there was, so were they just mainly reporting and interviewing people, or was there actually footage of whatever they think was attacking them, as I believe that the description was? Was there more there, or was it just basically things that would happen overnight, and then they would just interview them and talk to the witnesses, or those people that have seen what they've seen the night before?
Like what I've seen on my feed are a few videos of extremely poor quality that wouldn't convince anyone, to be honest. I think the most interesting thing about those videos is the reaction from the people, like the locals of these tribes in the Amazon, in the region. I think it's the region of Loreto in Peru, and these are all members of the Iquitos native tribe. And obviously all these people seem to be very agitated and very disturbed by the events that have been unfolding surrounding their community for a while. And what you see in these videos is people screaming, shouting, taking pot shots with rifles to something they see. One of the videos that I saw supposedly depicts something that these people are seeing, like nested on top of some tree. And it kind of felt almost, I don't know if you remember, Adnan, the movie Signs.
Yeah. Yeah, I do.
It kind of felt like this was science in real life. Like, you remember that part of the movie in which the character, the brother of Mel Gibson, is freaking out because he's seen all these, one of the videos of these children on some kind of like birthday party, and all of a sudden they actually show a few seconds of a green creature, and the guy goes like, oh my God. I feel that it was kind of like that, but not that good, because obviously one thing is Hollywood and this other thing is real life. Mm-hmm. But in that video, it seemed to show something like, I don't know, some people said it looked like a giant praying mantis, like as leaning into a branch or something. Although, to be perfectly honest, I saw those still images a few times, and I consider myself a pretty good person when it comes to pareidolia. Like, I have no problem finding all sorts of shapes and sizes in things like clouds or trees, inanimate objects, right? And with regards to this video, I was totally uncertain of what those people in the video were reacting to. Like, to me, it didn't look like anything. It looked like the branches of a tree illuminated by a torchlight or the light coming out of a cell phone.
Right. And also, something that I personally didn't like, because it was it had a lot of these like staged feel. It had a staged feel to this, and I found this online. I don't know if we didn't really discuss whether or not you want me to show some things while we're speaking. But there's that video where they supposedly have found a body, and there's a clear video of this body, half of the face gone, and they're calling it something about being more like surgically cleaned, removed by these aliens. And it just looks so fake to me, to where like, okay, well, I was happy, like, okay, great, there's something going on, you know, initially when I first saw, oh, UFOs in Peru, not realizing, oh, wait a minute, they're talking about being attacked. I was like, all right, what's going on? Because at the same time, and I know you and I, many years ago, we talked about this, I'm not sure if you remember, but, you know, everyone that's into UFOs in one way or another has heard of, you know, Project Bluebeam. And I can't help but think that maybe whether or not that's conspiracy, or whether or not that might actually eventually happen, you know, that there is a possibility that if something is happening, that it could be staged.
Right. Yeah, I know exactly what video you're referring to, because
do you mind, because I know we did discuss this ahead of time, do you mind if I show it in the browser while everyone is listening to us?
Sure, not at all.
Okay.
I'm not sure if I'm going to be looking at it from Skype.
All right. No, go ahead. Say what you were saying. I was just wanting to, because I didn't want to basically start playing something, because we didn't, usually I like to discuss things with my guests so that they know what's going on as well, or if they don't agree with it, saying, no, do not show this, but we haven't had that chance, so that's why I'm checking with you right now.
Yeah. For first things first, to everyone watching this, if you're going to present that video, you probably should give some kind of like warning that regardless of its veracity, it is quite disturbing to see.
Well, let me do that right now. So for those of you watching right now, I'm about to shift over to that video. It's looping, and I found it on X. So while RPJ is talking about this, I'm just going to have this loop a few times, and then we'll switch back to what you're seeing right now. All right, RPJ, go ahead. Say what you were going to say.
Right. Like I said, I was trying to find that video, because the first thing that I noticed, the first thing I encountered when I first heard of this story was a TV news segment, you know, from some local news anchors in Peru, who were talking to a reporter on site, talking about what these people in the tribe were describing and complaining to the authorities, because they were seeking the aid of the army, you know, because obviously if this is real, regardless of its origin, it is actively attacking people, or it's at least it seems to be attacking people. But regardless of this video that you're about to show, there was also news of I think it was a 15-year-old girl who apparently was also attacked in some manner. I mean, they were covering her face on that video, but it seemed that the girl was, I don't know if attacked or cut with some kind of like blade by someone or something that was described to be a very tall individual. I guess over 2 meters tall. That would be like, I don't know, almost 7 foot tall. If we're in the imperial system. And then the local reporter was talking about that video, which they say that obviously for reasons that they are on TV, they couldn't show it. And I was like, okay, but I want to see it. And eventually someone posted it on X, formerly Twitter. And at first I was like, whoa, but then I tried to like analyze what I was seeing, and something like didn't feel right to me. Like you said, at first you see 2 or 3 individuals that are standing over some kind of person or a body that is laying on the riverbed. And then they do a very poor job of trying to lift the body.
Whoops, sorry about that.
Right. and then you get to see, because the head is covered with something. I don't know if it's a tarp or something, but eventually you get to see the head, and then you see that, oh my God, is just like I don't know, Sleepy Hollow in Tim Burton's movie.
Right.
It's only like basically a skull peeled of all flesh and all the eyes, and hence the name they're using in the tribe. They call these attackers los pelacaras, which would be translated to the face peelers, which is quite a vivid image there. But I don't know, with regards to that particular video, a part of me thought, well, maybe it's an actor or someone that is wearing a really, really good prosthetic. I couldn't be certain.
Well, I think
There's
every generation has I think every generation has I guess a challenge or difficulty to overcome that's into researching UFOs in general, because in the 50s and 60s and 70s, as technology even changes, there are entire dummies that they sometimes use for to practice on reviving from, let's say, if somebody drowned, and where to push in on the chest and all that, and they look like actual bodies laying there. And it's all made out of silicone, whatever synthetic material, and so it's that's going back again. It's kind of like, how do you know? It's like, I can watch this, and unless you had your own experience to draw some conclusions from that and retell the story, it's so difficult. It's easy to just film something, fool you, and make you think that's real.
Yes, exactly. Another reason what I felt skeptical about this video is that if this is a body that was found near the river, it looked quite devoid of rigor mortis. You know what I mean? It didn't look bloated. The people, I don't know if they were police officers or some kind of emergency service personnel. They were lifting this body and moving the arms with quite easily, and I'm not sure if that is what you will find on a human carcass. Although maybe you could, make the assumption that the particulars in which this person was allegedly killed, maybe it affected the way the body decomposes. But obviously, this is speculation on our part. I'm not a forensic. Like I said, I don't even know if this video is real, or if it is CGI, or using really convincing prosthetics. And once again, the quality of the video, which was taken probably with a cell phone, and I think that one of the versions of the video you can find on X is someone recording a computer screen playing that video, which is even worse. Yes.
Yeah, that does make it worse. Yeah, I don't know. It sucks that sometimes things can't just be really just a actual capturing of a happening without any kind of having to have any kind of fear or a suspicion that, well, it could be altered, I could be misled, I could be whatever. It's just so hard to tell nowadays. But I want also, in case, just so this, whoever's, there's some people that are on Telegram, and the others I have also chatting. Is it okay that if I make an announcement to them that you're okay with questions also, or maybe do it next time? Because sometimes,
sure.
If people have some questions, if you might have an answer, at least it'll be a little bit more, I guess, helping them get the answers they're looking for. Because from over here, everything is, I guess, Americanized. So usually the perspective of somebody outside the United States is not heard very often.
Right. Although, obviously, we're talking about UFOs.
Yeah.
Nobody should presume that I have answers about anything.
Right. All right. So all of you watching, for those of you who have been following this channel for a while, I'm currently also streaming on Twitch, Facebook, X, and on Telegram, and of course on YouTube. And it's voice only on Telegram, but if you're on Telegram and following the UFO Hub live chat, you would be able to actually raise your hand and talk to the guests, in this case RPJ, directly and ask a question. Otherwise, if you are in the chat, just make sure to please leave 3 asterisks before your question, so that way I know it's meant for RPJ, and then I'll ask him as we're having this conversation. All right, and so I also, while you were talking, RPJ, I showed the video of something mantis-like to be in the trees where they were following, and then they were basically also showing something more like a luminous being that's been kind of walking around, and one video is illuminated where you see it just kind of glowing. The other one is through goggles, like a night vision goggles, and it's one of those really odd, and I think it's funny because we go for so long that it's just constantly grainy video all the time, to where now all of a sudden there's these like clear crystal things, when it's, at least what I just showed today here, to where you actually can make out a being moving and all this other stuff, right? Which, of course, having done video, and obviously anyone that loves to watch movies could kind of tell, okay, this could be CGI, or it could just be an alien really moving in this weird way. But it's just, it's really funny to me that now it's okay and we can actually have clear videos on some things, but then yet we go back to 480p on others.
Right. I mean, I don't know. Sometimes I wonder, Adnan, if this is part of the phenomenon. If the idea that we cannot really pin it down, that we don't get the crystal clear, definitive proof in some video. And like you said, by the way, in 2023, crystal clear video is not proof of anything. With all CGI, right, and all these new technologies that, including artificial intelligence, that can practically switch the face of some kind of celebrity and put it on the body of anyone, it will be harder and harder to tell the difference between what's real and what's unreal. But also with this phenomenon, I feel that there is this part of its nature that is seeking to almost like self-negate it. Mm-hmm. I don't know why. I think it's part of its tricksterish nature. I mean, there was this comedian in the United States. He had a famous bit. He was like mocking cryptozoology and Bigfoot research, like saying, "Oh my God, what if the reason why all these guys only get blurry photographs of Bigfoot is because Bigfoot is actually a blurry monster?" And it's supposed to be the meaning to these people who are searching for Bigfoot, but I think that may be something to that. That maybe maybe Bigfoot, it's kind of like a blurry something that enters into our reality, and it needs like a pair of human eyes in order to get some kind of concreteness. You know what I mean? I mean, yeah. That is the way that my mind thinks nowadays, because I no longer believe in UFOs as metal spacecraft coming from other planets, as ghosts being the spirits of dead people, and as Bigfoot beings just some undiscovered ape that happens to roam the Pacific Northwest, totally undisturbed. I feel there's something that is toying with us and is like almost like a carrot dangling over our faces. Like, look over here, walk here. Don't pay attention to that, but walk here, pay attention to what I'm showing you. And it will never, sometimes I fear that it will never be this the proof that everybody's expecting.
Oh my goodness. I'm so sorry. I'm trying to find some supporting footage of what you're talking about too. And even though I mute it, sometimes it unmutes itself on X. So I apologize for these random outbursts.
Don't worry about it. So those are my thoughts that maybe are too cynical, or a skeptic will say that I'm just rationalizing the lack of evidence that we are suffering from, not only in UFO studies, but also other studies that are, like trying to find the edges of, I don't know, reality, of known science. We have this problem, and maybe we need something like a new paradigm change in order to get, the kind of evidence that some people are yearning for.
Right. Well, I agree with you to the extent that, in my personal experience as well, that it is a capturing video. It's difficult because it's part of the phenomena itself. What I'm
Right.
trying to get at mainly here is that, so I often, like, maybe it's me and I just really suck at trying to explain this, and maybe it doesn't come across to some people that I do want their opinion, to give me of what they thought, think about. But so, like, whenever I say, well, through my experiences, and I tried getting video and I was not able to do it, where others get this footage. And everyone that hears me say this, they think that I'm talking somehow in this jealous way about what they achieved something I couldn't. That's not what I'm trying to get at all. I was more puzzled about, I had every intention and every willingness to capture whatever I was interacting with, and I could see and understand what these hindrances were in my way, where then other people have these videos and they just capture it. And so I'm more puzzled from knowledge point of view of what is it that I was interacting with versus what they interacted with that allowed them to shoot this footage, quote unquote, if it is real. You see do you understand what I'm trying to say? And so that's why I'm always puzzled by, like, okay, what did they have? What is it that they then interacted with that allowed this capturing? And then, okay, if that's one thing, then what was it that I interacted with? So that's what puzzles my mind. But it was actually a couple guests, one time on the air and then off the air, they were like, you shouldn't judge it. I'm like, I'm not judging it. I don't care. I'm happy for them that they have footage. All I'm trying to figure out is, what about the phenomena allowed them to capture this, but didn't allow it to me? That's what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah. Are they worthy more? Are they more worthy than you?
Is that part of it, right? Is that part of that phenomena too?
You are not of noble heart, therefore,
right.
No big picture for you.
Right.
I don't know if it works that way. Like, for example, I don't know if you are aware of this individual in the United States, Chris Bledsoe. He recently published a book titled UFO of God, and his case is really interesting because it's been noticed by all these people within the intelligence community, all the big names: Lou Elizondo, Hal Puthoff, Kit Green, Diana Pasulka. All those people have interacted with Bledsoe, have gone to his home in Florida, and they vouch for this guy, like saying, real stuff happens around him. I mean, even a friend of mine, Mike Leland, the guy who wrote all the owl stuff.
By the way, I don't know how I did not know this about you. You and Mike Leland, that you guys written the Owl book together, and I was like, what? So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. It was just such a surprise to me today. Maybe I suck at doing research.
Well, just a caveat. I didn't write the book with Mike. I just wrote, I think, a foreword for his the 10th anniversary of his blog Hidden Experience that he published, and I even recorded that foreword for the audio book version of it. But no, that's all Mike's credit.
All the things like Amazon and all these different places I looked at has your name as co-author, so it's like, oh, all right. Well, thanks for clarifying. Thanks for clarifying.
I told him like he needed to look into that because no, I don't take credit for that at all.
Oh, I got it.
But getting back to Bledsoe, like everybody, there's all these people, some of them credible to me, who say that real stuff happens around Bledsoe, but then this guy claims of having dozens and dozens of photographs and UFO videos. And you look at some of those videos that he has posted online, Adnan, and not to be disrespectful, but they're not convincing. To me, they're like, that light could be anything.
Right.
And some of them is like, okay, that's kind of interesting, but there's nothing that would convince any arch skeptic, Mick West kind of person who say, oh my God, this is real and UFOs are real and I was wrong all my life.
Right. Well, it's I think, this is one part that will be kind of I don't know, because I'm still trying to understand it to a large extent. There is because of my own experiences, there is a physical effect of the proximity of the phenomena by you, whether it's far away and then the closer it gets. And so I always talk about this and explain to people, like, I know what I had to do to overcome a lot to be able to understand it to the point that I did to get me outside of this fear, right? So that I'm not looking at it constantly from a fearful point of view, but I can actually look at it and make a just basically see it for what it is, to be more, basically for my own sake, be more educated about it. I'm not quite sure how this then, if this phenomena requires that kind of work, how general contact for everyone on the planet would happen without them also needing to go through these very mind-altering perceptions about our reality.
That is an interesting take on it, because there are a lot of people, and I kind of agree with them, that suppose or suggest that there is a reflective quality to the UFO phenomenon. I know it sounds kind of cliche and even like a fairy tale, like, oh, if you bring fear, the phenomenon will be fearful, or if you bring hate, then the phenomenon will be violent. And that's one of the explanations some people give to why UFOs seem to be more hostile in regions like, well, the regions that we were talking about at the beginning of this recording, Peru, the Amazons, Brazil, all the stuff we read about or heard about that happened in the 1970s in Colares, with the Chupa Chups that were attacking individuals that you will say, well, those are just innocent civilians minding their business. And all of a sudden you have this very negative reaction from the phenomenon. Whereas in other places, you get either a neutral reaction or even a positive reaction, that some people think of their UFO encounter as the best thing that happened in their lives. And I can totally understand why they will say that. I mean, everybody who saw the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind, I don't think there's a single person who wouldn't say, yeah, I wanna see that one day.
Right.
But again, we just don't know why. I mean, there seemed to be some kind of like method to the madness, as it were. Some rules we haven't figured out of why the phenomenon behaves the way it does. Why it seems to be attracted to not only to some geographic areas, but also to some people. Like there are researchers like Gary Nolan who tried to come up with an explanation based on cerebral physiology, and they started to talk about this thing, the putamen, cauda putamen. I don't remember the name, but you know what I mean. Apparently, some kind of like region in the brain of people who have been abducted or who have had regular UFO events, or who are also very sensitive psychically, and there seem to have a more developed region in the brain than other people. I mean, and obviously there are also other people who have tried to find explanations with regards to genetics and saying, well, maybe people who are descendants of Celtic immigrants have a higher chance of being abducted, things like that. But obviously that really gets complicated and paints you into a corner that I don't think anyone would like to be in this day and age, that like trying to talk about genetics and UFOs and psychic abilities. Like, who wants to go there, that avenue?
Right. But you know what I keep looking at this, so of course, with a lot of people having cell phones, which means you got a camera, it's a lot different than what it used to be just even 20 years ago, right? And so I can understand that a lot more footage is more likely and coverage is more likely to happen as something occurs. But I can't help but kind of see this and the way it was presented when the phenomena of Chupacabra first came out.
Right.
The way it's going and the way it's being covered and the interviews and all them, it's almost identical to me, because I had a very good friend of mine, Joe Palermo. He passed away now, but he went down with the crew down there to then take video and talk to people, like what did they what they find, what did they see, and then doctors analyzing these different chickens and showing how organs were missing, but only through like 3 different points that were no bigger than like a pen hole, like a thickness of a pen. And so then there was a speculation that it can specifically remove an organ or suck it out or whatever, but the whole that kind of came and went, and now there's the lore of Chupacabra. I personally have not seen it, but that doesn't mean that there have many reports or more videos on it. And so now with this coming around, it's kind of happening almost in the same way, but I'm also wondering why that specific region, right? So if it's staged, then it makes sense that it would just be, okay, it's these villagers that are in Amazon and you can't really get to them, so we can control the videos going out, right? And then, but then also the timing of it, I can't help but look at, okay, well, whatever your view is on that, what happened in Congress, it's like, why now that it has to be a attack in a very scary and negative way, almost simultaneously? And so there's all these factors that are just kind of crossing in my mind that just makes it even more so that, okay, I'm just going to sit back, I'll talk about it, you will talk about it, we'll mention it, of course, because I always say I'm not the gatekeeper of information, but I can't help but have all these things that enter my mind as I look at this.
Yeah, right. Like I look at all of this and try to remain I don't know, skeptically open-minded, which sounds like an oxymoron. I hope it's not. But because, like you said, we've been subjected to so many hoaxes and disinformation. But at the same time, some people are trying to find a quote-unquote logical explanation where they can't find any. And sometimes their explanations seem more implausible than the explanations that, well, yeah, maybe these are aliens that are coming here and they're attacking people for whatever reason. Like I heard reporters saying that they were attributing the attacks to illegal miners, that we know that this tribe is living in a region of the Amazon that is mired with a lot of conflict. Over its natural resources. So that there are either gangs of people who want to take advantage of that area, but to cut illegally trees to sell the wood, or there are also all these cattle ranchers who want to just like keep encroaching and keep invading territory that used to be pristine rainforest, hundreds and hundreds of years ago. So people were saying, well, maybe these attacks are miners are attacking in order to scare the villagers, almost like the plot of some Scooby-Doo episode. And
Right.
then people like me say, well, what about all those accounts that these pelacaras, these face peelers, seem to be able to levitate, that to float and to fly away when the villagers defend themselves? And they say, well, maybe these miners are using some kind of like a jetpack or something. And it's like, okay, now your quote unquote logical explanation seems far and far more far-fetched. I mean, those
Right.
explanations are well and good for a Scooby-Doo episode, but I mean, to be honest, why would illegal miners bother to such an extent, to such an elaborate plot? Why don't just go
Jetpacks are
and
expensive.
yeah, exactly. I mean, I live in Mexico, Adnan. I live in a country that is also afflicted with a lot of violence from gangs. Some of them also engage in illegal logging activities. And these gangs, they don't resort to costumes, or they don't resort to kind of like ways to disguise themselves or their intentions. They just go and kill people, plain and simple.
Right.
So, I mean, I'm sorry to be blunt, but I think that if these were illegal miners, they wouldn't be using these almost like COINTELPRO PSYOP tactics, like the ones that we know the CIA actually used in some of their operations, like in the 1950s when they were battling guerrilla groups in the Philippines, and they were killing some of the guerrilla warriors and leaving their bodies in the jungle, but they were making those puncture wounds in the neck, like almost like they were sucked dry of all their blood through those puncture wounds, because they were exploiting the local legends about vampires. That they knew that the guerrilla warriors there were very superstitious. So they were using their own superstition as a weapon against them. And I can see the CIA using such tactics for some, nefarious the purpose of trying to topple a government or whatever. But just regular illegal loggers, I don't buy it.
Plus, I'm really sorry, you are mistaken. The CIA is a very stand-up organization. They would never, ever do anything like that. So I'm sorry that I usually agree with you, but you are going too far right now.
Yeah.
I hope you know. I hope you know I'm joking.
Speak soundly tonight.
Right.
Whereas I will have to keep an eye open to see if someone tries to bag me and take me to
Right.
Guantanamo.
Oh goodness. Well, RPG, I have a question from one of the audience rolled the losing dice, asking, why do you think aliens are so interested in DNA collection?
Well, are they? That's that's a narrative that, to be honest, I'm not really sure if it's backed by reliable evidence.
Because it mainly came through witnesses, right? And that's what that's the only thing that I know. Usually it's always a witness story that then...
Well, we have these accounts that were usually started to appear in the UFO literature that were extracted from people who were subjected to hypnosis regression. And that's, the first red flag that should people watching this should be concerned, because that's when people like Bud Hopkins and all the others started to receive all these accounts that the aliens were extracting not only eggs from women, but also sperm samples from males, and they were keeping all these children in bat tubes or whatever. I mean, that is the modern mythology, although it has to be said that mythology kind of has existed with us for a long, long time. And now I have to reference my good friend and colleague, Joshua Cutchin, who has written extensively about all these Celtic legends about the Fae folk. And the Fae folk, indeed, not unlike the aliens of modern times, are kind of like obsessed with abducting people and stealing children. You know, in the case of the fairies, the children will often be stolen permanently, and that sometimes they will even replace the child with one of their own, and this is what is called the changeling, you know, which is supposed to be like an old fairy that is left instead of a human babe in some crib. And all these legends about how you could get rid of the changeling in order to retrieve your child, some of them are quite horrible, by the way, because it involved torturing children. And Josh writes about how all these traditions might have been some kind of like a shield to cloak what was happening in those countries back in those days, which was basically infanticide. You know, that country, the cultures that were getting rid of undesired children, and justifying those horrible actions through their lore that, oh, well, you know, my child, he's not autistic. What happens is that he's changeling, and therefore I need to like perform this ritual, which involves beating him in order to get my child back, you know, before he started to act funny. And you can read all about that in one of Josh's books, which is excellent. It's called, I think the name is Thieves in the Night is the name of that book. And to the person making that question, I think that it's something that has to be put in perspective. How, okay, we assume this interest in DNA, in genetics, and there could be many reasons for that. Like maybe, I don't know, perhaps one of the reasons is because the aliens need Earth-based DNA in order to create bodies that they can use, so they can, you know, switch bodies whenever they come into a planet, right? I mean, why do you pack your body when you just can like, you know, travel light, and you just upload your consciousness in a computer, and once you arrive to the planet, you like create somebody in a bat, and you then upload your consciousness into that body, and that way you can, you know, interact within that planet's atmosphere that your body is designed to withstand the gravity very nicely, and therefore that's why they keep needing DNA, because they need replacement parts, whatever. But at the same time, that sounds so implausible, because why will they need to keep stealing all these eggs and DNA samples when they could just, I don't know, scrape a little bit of skin out of their abductees instead of submitting them to such horrible medical procedures? Like, I mean, I would envision a truly advanced civilization to just get like a toenail, and with that small DNA material, you know, clone an entire adult body.
Right. RPG, just real quick, while you're on that subject, there is a question from Ruben asking, what are your thoughts on the hybrid program? And so I know, well, we know what the hybrid program is about from witnesses, but then as a researcher, what are your thoughts? Maybe that's what even Ruben would want to know. I think that's how he also might have, his question is actually might be in that regard.
Like I said, I'm skeptical of these narratives, like all these abduction researchers. I fear that when they were subjecting the people they were studying, all these abductees, to all these hypnosis regressions, they were, I'm not saying that they were putting images in their minds or something, but I fear that they were probably interpreting all this symbolic imagery from these events into a very too literal interpretation. I will also point out that I don't know if you've ever read, Adnan, DMT, the Spirit Molecule.
I think there's a documentary, but I don't know if it's the documentary and book related.
Yes, there are. Totally
I know
related.
of DMT.
Right. So this book, for people who are not familiar with it, was written by Dr. Rick Strassman, who was the first medical doctor who conducted government-sanctioned studies on psychedelics, namely DMT, dimethyltryptamine, which is the most powerful psychedelic compound known to us. And interestingly enough, it is also a compound that is secreted by your brain. So that is part of the human condition to have this powerful psychedelic. And it might be the reason behind experiences like near-death experiences, visionary experiences, prophetic visions, or even abduction experiences. And the reason why we might suspect that is because many of the people who were put into trial, many of them related stories that sounded a lot like the typical abduction scenario, like they woke or they found themselves within this really strange realm full of machinery and with no discernible lights, and sometimes even on a table, and they were observed by non-human entities, right? And sometimes those entities perform some type of procedure to them. Some of those procedures, sometimes they were not really that painful, so sometimes they were painful. I mean, I remember one account, one of the trial subjects reported like being literally raped by some kind of like reptilian entities while under the effects of DMT. So we need to ask if there is some kind of like relationship between those accounts that were reported in the UFO literature by people like Bud Hopkins and the accounts of people who were just subjected to this powerful drug, but they were not taken by a UFO, at least not in the physical sense. I mean, it really puts into question the physicality of the UFO phenomenon or its paraphysicality, as it were, because I think the thing with the UFO phenomenon, as it with these experiences under DMT, it transcends our definition of reality.
I see. Well, I find having done this for several years now, I find this. I guess the best way to describe it is a disconnect between people that research and then go to the extent to truly try to understand it, and then those that are just kind of generally interested in the phenomena. And there is a disconnect there that I think is a wide enough gap between what researchers have to go and what rabbit hole they have to go down to try to understand something and the possibility of that happening, as opposed to, let's say, just somebody watching a video like this one, or just watching some documentaries and whatnot. And it's I guess maybe that disconnect exists in everything, even between science and us, because there's certain things that scientists cover and they'll go down this path that most average person will never do, and we just rely on them to come back and say, all right, this is what's possible in physics today, and tomorrow it might be a different story, but as of right now, this is the law, and it's like, can that subject of ufology then be brought closer to the average person to where they can, go down the same rabbit hole as the researchers? Or do you think there's always just going to be, these two groups of people?
Well, one thing to point out, Adnan, this is a dirty little secret that is not told often. in UFO circles is that many researchers are closeted experiencers themselves. By what I mean is that some of them, they never admit in public. They will only admit in private that they have had experiences of their own. Like, I mean, Bud Hopkins, his interest began because he saw a UFO one time, and it really greatly impressed him. And Raymond Fowler, the MUFON researcher who ended up writing all those books about the Andreasson affair, which are really interesting because it really diverges from the typical idea of the narrative of the little scientist coming in metal craft, coming here to collect samples. Although she had also experience which were quite physical and traumatic in nature, including seeing a fetus undeveloped in some kind of like almost like a aquarium bat or something. But Raymond Fowler, getting to him, he admitted later in life that he also was a UFO experiencer. So I think that many researchers they don't really admit it, but they have had experiences of their own. But maybe that's the reason why they have this obsession or passion, or maybe someone or something put them on that particular path, almost like modern Saint Paul's. On their way to Damascus, they had this vision that changed their life forever. Now, talking about trying to bring like the UFO experience to the masses, well, it's kind of like a complicated question because I suspect that the UFO experience is far more common than we dare to imagine, because I feel that today in our modern era, such events are underreported because they are stigmatized by the culture. It's like the thing that you wouldn't bring uh, to the table during a family dinner. Like I don't know, have your experience like in the work environment. I remember when I used still working in an average office. Talking about UFOs was something that always felt kind of embarrassing to me. Like people will give me this look, and we all know about that kind of stigma. So now imagine if someone actually had an experience, they probably would keep it to themselves. So I feel, therefore, that not only UFO events, but also all sorts of high strangeness events probably get underreported. People like keep them on their back of their minds, or maybe they even forget about them, if it was traumatic enough. Some people remember they had a really important and traumatic experience, and it was long enough only after something triggers that memory that they realize that they managed to bury the memory with deep within their subconscious. So there's that. I feel that what is one of the reasons why the term paranormal is such inadequate, because I think that this is the real face of normal. These aspects that we live in a world that is inhabited by all these forces and all these currents, and we try not to pay attention to them because we're only so preoccupied with our daily lives and our routines and our jobs and our relationships and Netflix and Nintendo Switch and all that crap. And on top of that, we know we're gonna die one day, and there's climate change and there's all that. So who has time to really pay attention to all the demons and the monsters and the phones, playing in the forests like our ancestors did? But yet they're still there. We just have to look and pay attention to them. And maybe one day we will once again. Maybe, I don't know, maybe we need something really strong to happen. Like maybe this civilization needs to collapse, and it probably will, whether we want it or not, because climate change is here and it's coming for all of us. So maybe once we are rid of our, amazing technology that we felt so proud of, we will once again pay attention to what is all around us, and we will see that all those people reporting with experiences, they were just simply more sensitive to these energies that are all around us, and they never leave us.
Well, going back to your comment about talking about UFOs at the workplace, part of my experiences, and then I also found out many other people that have had them. What makes it a big difference about being able to just talk about UFOs with people that generally are not into that is that I learned a long time ago to just keep doing what I'm doing, like going to conferences. If I have to take off, I'm saying, oh, I'm taking off, and I actually say for the reason why, but then I leave it at that, and I don't just say, oh, I need a personal day. I'm like, nope, I'm going to UFO conference, or no, I'm doing an interview, when I was still working a regular corporate job. And what I found was very interesting is because, well, for one, I didn't want to lower my own my own life somehow, as if I'm not worthy to be around the normies, just because I'm into UFOs, and just because they don't want to know or understand. But what I did find very interesting is by me doing that and persisting, the first 2-3 years, nothing, and it didn't matter. It was not about them, whether or not they why didn't they come ask me? Why didn't they come talk to me about this? But what was interesting is that people knew. And then one by one, and it's maybe like a total of 10, 12 people then after this 2 years, threshold that just came to me in secret, and just kind of wanted to be like, hey, I heard you doing, you like researching UFOs. What's that all about? And they asked me, and I would tell them a little bit, and then they'll ask me more. And that's when I know I can tell them more. But it was, at no point did I ever, feel like I shouldn't talk about this, or maybe, this is too crazy, because, it's like I've experienced so much crazy shit that I know they can't even begin to relate. And just because they haven't had that experience doesn't mean that now I have to lessen my life experience in some way. Like I always often use that example. What if, you and I, unless, let's say there was no video of us having a conversation, and we talk and we part ways, and then somebody says, what were you doing? I was like, oh, I was talking to RPJ. I don't know. There's no proof of RPG existing. I'm like, no, I did. We talked about great details, They're like, they go online and there's no proof of RPG. They're like, oh, no, he lives here. Nope, I can't see it. Do you see what I mean? And so basically, the point was, I could not then, just deny that, because, okay, fine, you don't believe me, but at the same time, I have eyes, and, I can see what I'm, interacting with, and I can tell, yep, I'm sleeping, or no, I wasn't sleeping, or, whatever. And so I trust enough of, of what it is that I was doing on my own senses to just, be very comfortable talking about it matter-of-factually, because then it changed their mind. Because I think if I was more nervous and more talking about it from the insecure point of view, it would also then create this doubt within them, kind of like, do I need to be listening to this dude, But I would just talk about it, and I'm like, yep, this is what happened, and this is, what I did with it, and then I move on. And it leaves the seed in their minds to where they keep coming back for more.
Yeah, like I said, I used to be very judgmental of people who weren't paying as much attention to these topics as I did when I was younger. Like when I was younger and I was in my teens, and I was reading all these UFO books, and all the school kids made fun of me and they mocked me and whatever. You get a sense of bitterness that I fear that is one of the driving forces behind many of the people who become more vocal in online circles, UFO Twitter, and well, I don't know. Are we still calling it UFO Twitter, or is it UFO X or XUFO, or how do we navigate the change
I'm sorry,
name
I
here?
can't. I think I still seen UFO Twitter. So I'm just
Exactly,
gonna stick with that until somebody changes it.
exactly, exactly. Up yours, Salon. So, and and again, I feel that like you found out, a lot of people have something to tell. They have this experience that the problem is that they have never found the place in which they feel safe sharing it, and that I think that's one of the reasons why so many of us felt drawn to the internet and all these forums or websites or BBS chat groups where people could actually share these stories, and you found a sense of community and also found a sense that you were not alone, because once again these experiences are far more common than we give them credit for. You see all these polls, not only about UFOs, regularly they put these polls that, I don't know, like 70% of Americans believe in angels. Which is kind of astounding, even in a world that is becoming less and less religious. As people keep dropping from going to regular church services, but they still believe in angels and they still believe in astrology and other things. So there's all these interesting developments of like people no longer aligning with an institution, but still interested in things that go counter with what society supposedly believes in, which supposedly we only believe in matter. We only believe that there's nothing outside what our senses or our instruments can detect, and death is the end of it all, and there's nothing else, and very empirical, right? But that's not the case. That people do not behave that way. If they were, if they did, I don't know, everybody would be married with a prenup or something, and they wouldn't go to a church or they wouldn't feel the need to utter a little prayer when they see a car accident. So I don't know. What I'm getting with this is that we shouldn't judge and we shouldn't be so too hard with the people who are not paying as much attention as we do, because life is hard. And I came to realize later in life that this UFO interest, is kind of like a privilege, because there are many people out there who are so consumed with the day-to-day life, with trying to keep up with their careers or with their jobs, trying to keep their marriage afloat, their family afloat, trying to provide for their kids, put food on the table, and you ask them to know who Bob Lazar is or what he's all about. They don't have time for that. And at the same time, maybe we shouldn't pay that much attention to Bob Lazar, because guess what? The world is on fire. The world is on fire, and Bob Lazar is not gonna goddamn solve that with his goddamn element 115 or whatever. And maybe even if the UFOs land, or the president of the United States tomorrow goes before the White House and says, "My fellow Americans and citizens of the world, we are not alone, and yes, UFOs are real," there will be probably a big hooray among our circles, but at the end of the day, we're still immersed in this problem of our collapsing environment, collapsing nature, rising tidal waves, and what would you say, if tomorrow the stupid Vladimir Putin gets in a bad mood and decides to push the button? And you say, well, at least we found that UFOs are real, before we all get blasted, by the nukes. Small comfort.
Right. Well, you and I both have been around long enough, though. I mean, throughout, most of my life, there's this chaotic and alarming stance that they always just try to dangle in front of people's eyes. You know, for me, in my case, Yugoslavia and that whole breakdown, you know, and it seemed like an end of the world, you know, scenario. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is just there's still a certain aspect about life that one can still take and try to concentrate to make up their own stance about what is it that they want from it before they take that last breath, you know.
Yeah,
And irregardless of what still goes on out there, no matter how good or bad things are, you know. And I think if people would take the time to you know, to just take that approach, would give them a different understanding, right? Because at the end of the day, we're software. Consciousness is a version of software that you can rewrite it, you know, if it doesn't match deep down of who you are in your heart. And so I still think that, you know, at no point is it ever too late for somebody to stop and kind of look around and be like, who am I? Why am I here?
for sure. I agree completely. I mean, one of the reasons why I'm so thankful for UFOs, I mean, the thing that has the UFO topic has given me is not like, oh, certainty that, yeah, the UFOs come from X planet or Y dimension and they're here for this and this and this. I don't think I'll ever get those answers. And I'm quite comfortable with that, of going to my grave not knowing the ultimate answer to the UFO mystery. But I don't care, because what the UFOs gave to my life, it enriched my life by giving me this sense of wonder, of really looking into the world and see it. There is magic in it. You know, I mean, it sounds cliche, it sounds corny as hell, but I truly believe in that there is an aspect of the world that is so inspiring, and it's like I suspect is one of the reasons that gives inspiration to artists, and it's the reason why great musicians write wonderful songs that will remain for thousands of years. It's that sense of wonder that I also find in the UFO mysteries. There's a reason that, oh well, we there's something there. There's something that transcends us, that is bigger than us, and that is bigger than our comprehension. And you know, and that could be a sense of dread to some, like the idea that, oh my God, there's something that we cannot comprehend. We must shoot it down. That's the attitude that the military guys in the United States have. You know, oh, UFOs are a potential threat, and we need to, you know, be on the alert. But you can also say, like, oh my God, UFOs, it seems to be something that goes beyond our comprehension. And that should be, okay, yes, a sense of fear, but also a sense of wonder. And I think that sense of wonder, like you say, puts your life in perspective. And like you said, you realize, oh my God, well, I'm here for a limited amount of time. Do I really want to spend those limited amount of years just, you know, chasing after a daily paycheck or a regular paycheck, or just doing things and buying stuff that there really doesn't really give me any satisfaction once I open the box and I realize, oh, well, it's just crap that I really didn't need. And now I need to work more to make up for the money that I just wasted buying this thing that I will toss in a few years. But maybe if you go and turn your gaze to the UFOs, you'll see, well, there are far more interesting things you could be using your life with, you know, like searching for these answers, sure, but also, I mean, doing other stuff. Like my friend Mike Cleland, you know, we were talking about him earlier. He keeps saying, you know, the great thing about UFOs is you first start talking about lights in the sky, and sooner or later you have to talk about God, because I think that is at the center of the, I mean, obviously it's the biggest mystery. You know, what is after we die? Is there a God? Is there some? And I think those mysteries with the UFO mystery are related, deeply related. You know. And UFOs are almost like a gateway drug. Like you start studying UFOs, and then you learn about parapsychology, psychic phenomena, remote viewing, reincarnation, and say, "Oh my God, this is all connected." Well, it is connected because it's all seems to be entangled with consciousness, which is the biggest mystery of it all. You know, and I hope one day that our civilization will start to pay more attention to these questions instead of just saying, okay, how do we make a bigger phone, or a faster car, or, all these toys that are just like polluting our planet, and they're pointless. I mean, UFOs, I think, are a way to see just how pointless this other stuff is. But like I said, at the same time, I try to be not that judgmental with the people who don't share my point of view, because I realize, okay, they are on their path, they are on their life, and I'm in mine, and I haven't had the luxury of walking on a mile on their shoes. They haven't done the same on mine. And maybe at one day we will all just meet at some point, once everything is said and done. Maybe not. I don't know. I don't have, like I said, I don't have answers. I just have, I don't know. I try to have hope instead of answers nowadays.
Right. Well, I have I have a question from Hazel, and this seems like it should have been a question at the very beginning, but she basically writes, "Sorry if I missed it. I had to leave the room a couple of times. Has the caller had his own experiences? If so, at what age, and how has it changed him?" I don't know. I know you and I talked, but I don't know to what extent of what you've been through. So I'm curious myself now to hear from you if you have anything to share.
Well, like when it comes to like UFO experiences, we were mentioning those encounters of the third kind. I've always wanted my mothership on top of the mountain moment, or at least I will settle with just watching the brightly lit multicolor UFO was whizzing by, the highway next to my truck, like in the movie. Unfortunately, none of that had happened. I had once a really curious, I would say it was a UFO event, because once I was doing something in the middle of the night. I was outside, and then I looked like out of the corner of my eye. I turned very slightly my head, and I saw this like light doing something almost like an insect, like doing, but it wasn't an insect. It wasn't a firefly. I mean, in Mexico City, there are no fireflies, and besides, it was October. Way too cold for firefly weather, and that was it. It lasted probably less than a second, but it still managed to get an impression for me. And I guess the reason why it got an impression for me is because I wasn't expecting it. I was coming from one of those conferences in which I managed to hang out with my friends. So I was in a really, really good headspace, and I was feeling this sense of thankfulness and nostalgia, because I knew that it will take at least a year or 2 years to once again get to see my friends. So there was this sadness wrap around happiness, and that's when I had the experience. And it kind of like made me wonder that, well, maybe the reason that I didn't have an experience before was because like I was too focused on having it, instead of like just let it happen, like not actively searching for it, if you know what I mean. So there was that, which really isn't like nothing to brag about. But when it comes to other kind of like weird experiences, I think that synchronicities are by far the ones that have impacted my life the most. Like, I don't know if you are aware, Adnan, that I recently, with the help of other friends, we released something we call the Ufology Tarot deck, which is like a tarot deck, the major arcana deck cards in the tarot. But instead of the typical symbology, we used people from the UFO history. So the magician is Jacques Vallée, the hermit is John Keel, and things like that, right? It's
Yeah,
something
I saw it on your site. I just recently saw it. If you came out with that early, I was not aware, but just within the past 3 days.
Right. So yeah, this is something that I mean, we've been working in it for years and years, right? Obviously, most of the project was completed last year. You know, in 2022, between 2021 and 2022. And let me tell you, there were a lot of synchronicities connected to that project. Like one I can share with you right now with your audience is that when I completed the Hermit card, which was the one with John Keel, like the night that I completed the card, I realized that I completed the card the exact anniversary of the collapse of the Silver Bridge in Point Pleasant, West Virginia in 1967. The thing
Right.
that was portrayed not only in John Keel's book, The Mothman Prophecies, but also in the movie that was inspired by the book, which is kind of good. You know, at first I didn't like it, but then it kind of grew on me. But anyway, it was something that I didn't plan. You know, it came out like organically, and I really was like, oh wow. And there were several others experiences that happened to me which were really like, oh my God, this is beyond normal coincidence, you know. And I think that is one of the disguises, as it were, in which the phenomenon tries to like make us pay attention to it.
Right. Well, I'm glad you also mentioned the other part. So I pretty much wanted to ask the questions I wanted to ask you, and I really appreciate you being on with me tonight. And I was wondering, before we sign off, when I switch over to, I'm on the Daily Grail site right now, looking at the cards, and so I was wondering if you can talk a little bit about that as I show the people what you're talking about.
Sure, like I mean, they're my they're my pride and joy. Took me so goddamn long to make them. I didn't make them alone. It was kind of like a collective project organized by other like-minded friends and colleagues, and we managed to create a crowdfunding campaign to pay for the process. You know, not only to pay for my fees so I could keep eating while I was drawing these things, but also to finally print them and ship them to the people who backed us up through that Kickstarter campaign. And I mean, it's a really interesting project because it's not just something like, okay, I'm taking the tarot and I'm just like putting in the face of I don't know, Coral Lorenzen or Jenny Randalls instead of the face of the generic woman that appears in the card that was designed by the name of the artist escapes me. I think it was Coleman. We really put a lot of effort in try to insert a lot of symbology into the cards that speaks about the history of UFOs, the history of these people who are portrayed in these cards, our own interpretations of the UFO phenomenon. And I also, me as the one in charge of drawing them, I was really interested in doing something that even someone who didn't give, a damn about the UFO topic will still say like, whoa, what are these? You know, just pick them up and look at them at least for a few seconds, you know, even if they weren't really interested in them. And
Yeah,
I
they're
think that
really
I
nice
actually managed.
graphics.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I tried to make them as pretty as I could.
Yeah, no,
And
this is actually
what else?
pretty. So, like, but then I'm assuming then somebody that does tarot card reading can use them based on the same concept of tarot cards, although
Of
the picture
course,
doesn't exactly reflect.
of course. And actually, I'm actually counting on them. I'm
Right,
actually hoping that people who are regular tarot readers will actually manage to pick up the cards, even though it's just the, like I said, it's just the major arcana, and actually conduct a few readings to them, and use them whatever the way they want to, to use them to uh, as psychological consultation, as divination. I don't care, or even
right,
just to learn about the history of ufology. I really am very interested in seeing how people will end up using them. I mean, maybe skeptics will using them for target practice. I don't know. I don't care.
right. And so, can you explain a
I
little
may
bit just the Daily Grail?
skeptics
You're blogging there, right? Is that your main contribution? Because I know you also have your own site.
right. I mean, the Daily Grail, yeah, definitely is like my main hub, as it were. I mean, I've been collaborating with the Daily Grail and its owner, Greg Taylor, for Jesus, 2007, 2008, at least from 2008. I've
Right,
been working, collaborating with them in some capacity. And I guess is the place that people connect me with, and I'm very proud of that, because Daily Grail is one of the best places you can visit in order to get news related to paranormal content, because I think we have a very open mind but centered approach to all these topics. We have a deep knowledge of these topics, so we don't fall for the fads, as it were, when it comes to, oh my God, David Grouch is the new whistleblower, and he's talking about all these legacy programs of recovered alien reverse engineering. Oh my God, oh, yeah, but we know that before him, there were this and this and these other people who were basically telling the same thing in the 70s, in the 60s, in the 50s, whatever. So
right.
I think that is the richness that we'll find in people in the Daily Grail. And we're also interested in other things, parapsychology, uh, ghost stories, all the stuff. I mean, I think and also regular history and regular stuff. I think that it's the richness of the place. And
Right.
as for my own personal website, yeah, I have a little thing called Absurd by Design. Yeah, the title is something that
Yeah.
really
I'm on there
speaks
right now
about
looking
my.
at some of the graphics.
Yeah, thank you. I haven't updated it in ages because I've been too busy. The last thing that I did, Adnan, that I'm going to publish and talk about, not only on my own personal website, but the Daily Grail. I just completed the cover for Joshua Cutchin's first novel that he's going to publish by the end of this month. And
Okay.
it's a great book. I mean, I'm not saying this because Josh is my boy, he's one of my best friends, but I mean, this motherfucker can write. It's all I'm saying. It's all I'm saying is this book is phenomenal. It's long, but you will see that you will not be able to put it down until you finish it.
All right. Well, RPJ, thank you very much. I really appreciate it again. I know it's I think we're in the same timeline, right? It should be close to 8:30 on your end as well. And yeah,
Yeah,
I'm glad you were able to come on at least just to tell me about your perspective from your part of the world where you live at, and just to see if there's if it's any different than what's being shown over here. Now, of course, the normies, I call them, they wouldn't know anything what's going on if they're not even aware of UFOs. They wouldn't even be aware of any attacks in Brazil or Peru or anywhere else. So.
yeah.
But in either case, yeah, thank you again. Give me the two links again. So dailygrail.com and absurdbydesign.com.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Well, again, thank you. I hope we could do this again sometime. I know it's been a while since the last time, we were on, but if things keep ramping up more and more, I definitely, need that other perspective from that part of the world. So I would greatly appreciate it if you can come back on.
Sure, you got it. It will be my pleasure, Adnan. Always nice talking to you.
All right. Well, sit tight. Let me just say goodbye to the audience, and then this should be it. So everyone, thank you all very much. I appreciate you joining us, and for those asking questions, as always, you can join the Telegram group where I basically try to keep more of a direct personal line. And if anything else happens with any of the other channels, I'll always have Telegram. So also, since I know a lot of you have questions, but somehow when a guest comes on and the more popular they are, the least amount of people want to actually ask questions. When I know that there's always chat rooms and Reddit and everybody filled with all kinds of things to say about the author, to the author or the researcher, but then they don't take the opportunity to talk to them. So that's one thing that I've always had kind of going since I started the live streaming, is that you can always call in to basically just ask the questions or whatever is on your mind, so that you're not basically, for one, you get to speak to that person directly, and two, you're not just reading a book or getting it second, third, fourth hand, kind of as to say, through the grapevine. So anyway, I hope you check out all the websites that RPJ has provided. Also, anything that I have in the description below, where you can follow UFO Hub on podcasts and all the other channels. I hope you check that out as well. And I don't often do this, but if you can, subscribe, like, if you are liking it. If not, give me a dislike, who knows? But anyway, so this will be it for today. Please join me next week, Wednesday at 7 p.m. I might have an open lines, maybe another guest. I'm not quite sure yet, but just stay tuned. So I've been officially back after my lightning surge, and so a lot of things that I need for streaming have been replaced, and it seems to be working all right today. So again, thank you all. RPJ, thank you as well, and I hope to see you all next time.